I identify myself as a Palestinian writer from Gaza. I say this to people, I don't have a problem with it. Some writers have a problem with being pigeonholed. I'm not, I don't have a problem with that because I love Gaza. I love my city. I have a lot to say about it. I've written 2 novels. I'm in the process of writing the third. I've written short stories, plays. And you know what? Like, if I have the ability and the time and the money, I would write hundreds of books about Gaza because in every single corner of that city, there is something, there is a story to tell. And that's all what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, in every single corner, there is a martyr and there is a bomb and there is a history. And that's because we've had over 100 years of colonizer after colonizer coming to bomb us and take away our freedom.
Hello and welcome back to the Palestine Deep Dive. My name is Ahmed Alnaouq. I'm a Palestinian journalist from Gaza. And I am today meeting with another Ahmed, also from Gaza. His name is Ahmed Masoud. He's a Palestinian writer, playwright, novelist, poet, and also amazing and handsome guy. He asked me to say that. Ahmed, welcome to Palestine Deep Dive.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Another Ahmed, another creative like yourself, sitting here having a chat. It's an incredible opportunity. Thank you so much for
Isn't
having me.
everyone in Gaza called Ahmed? Because I remember when I was at school, at every class, there would be 7 or 8 Ahmeds.
I think only the creative, handsome ones, yes.
Thank you, Ahmed. Ahmed, I've known about you for many, many years since I was in We're Not Numbers and you would give training sessions to our writers. But I got to know you well only last week when we traveled together to Barcelona to speak about our other book, Gaza Story of a Genocide. And I remember when I first met you and I told you how much I hate flights, you gave me one of your plays, The Shroud Maker, and you asked me to read it while I'm flying. And I read it all. And I have to say, it is the only piece of writing that made me cry for the past 2 years. And I have always complained that because of the genocide, I stopped crying. Nothing moves me anymore. Nothing makes me tear up. But that play, it actually shook something in me. It teared me up. I was about to explode, really. I don't know what was about it, but it touched something deep, deep, deep in me. And I want to start talking about it. Tell me more about this Shroud Maker. And yes, I know it's fiction, but it's also nonfiction because it's based on a true story. So please tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. Firstly, I'm sorry it made you cry.
No,
But
that's good cry.
it's a good cry.
It's good cry.
Okay. But I know why
It
it made you
reminded me
cry.
that I'm a human.
I know what you mean, and actually, writing it, I cried a lot, many times. And there is a particular section where it goes through the history and the sort of decades of injustice that we as Palestinians have gone through. And every time I wrote a sentence of that paragraph, that long paragraph, I cried, and I had to stop. I couldn't bring myself to write it. The Shroud Maker is a play about an 84-year-old woman in Gaza, a real character who was actually during the war in 2014, the last major war on Gaza, where over 2,300 people were killed. A lot of Gaza was destroyed, and many people were ethnically cleansed, and I think until today, actually, lost their homes, etc. I was in London. I was reading news, as you know, and as you kind of go through this experience, whenever there's a war on Gaza, and there's been many, I never sleep because I don't want to, I don't know what I'm going to wake up to. That's the problem. Like, I get scared of the night. I get scared of waking up to bad news and all of these things. So I stay up all night. And during that time in 2014, we still had what now looks like luxury, that you would have news kind of put in the names of the dead and the injured, etc. And there was more of journalism and young people kind of reporting on the war and others. And also local news agencies were a bit more active. Now they've all been targeted during this genocide, as you know. A lot of people have been killed, journalists, etc. But during that time, I saw this interview in the local website, Sama News, if you know it.
Yeah.
It's from Gaza, I think. But it was an interview with this 84-year-old woman who had her shop open in the middle of a war. and she sold shrouds. Now we know what shrouds are now, right? They're body bags, essentially, or the white cloth that we cover the dead with in our Palestinian and Muslim culture. And the guy was asking her, well, why have you got your shop open in the middle of a war? And she was just like crazy. She was amazing. She said, well, the more people that die, the better for me. I make more money. You know, I even have offers, buy one, get one free.
Mm,
And I thought, what an incredible concept. Who is this woman? How did she get to this place that actually in the middle of a war, she is not benefiting on purpose, but she is trying to survive differently.
mm.
So I thought, I need to meet her. I need to go speak to her, and I need to write a play about her.
And you flew from London back to Gaza to meet her.
I did. I did.
Wow.
I mean, I often go to Gaza
Yeah.
at least twice a year, very often once a year, because all my family are there, my siblings, etc. So I went to see her. She was actually in Jabalia camp,
Mm,
and I went to see her. She wasn't quite with it in a sense, like her story didn't make a lot of sense.
mm.
But I got the basics from her and I wanted to kind of create a story. And I used my imagination. So it's loosely based on her life. Hajja Saad was born in 1936 in a village called Aqur in the West Bank. And she worked at the British High Commissioner's house during the mandate. I call
Yeah.
it occupation rather than British mandate. I call it occupation. And she worked, and she becomes the lady of the house. She becomes my fair lady. She's taught English, piano, horse riding, and everything. And then when 1948 happens, she's left abandoned by herself in the big old Jerusalem house. And she had to run and survive. As she runs away, she finds her dad, who became a gardener in that house, dead in the garden. Should I just spoil the play, or shall I just skip some snippets of it?
It's your play. It's your play.
And as she runs away, she finds a child, and so she picks up the child, a baby, and adopts that baby and becomes her child. Fast forward to 1967, she's forced to leave the West Bank and move to Gaza, and her child grows up, and her child gets married and has a child, and so she becomes a grandmother. Fast forward to 1987, her son gets killed, and she has to look after her grandchild, who then runs away completely because he's so traumatized by the killing of his father. And then the rest, I'm not gonna spoil it, but she spends a lot of time looking for her grandson, asking everybody,
Yeah.
and we go forward and forward until we get to 2014, back to the beginning of the play, and something happens there. So you have to either read the play or see it live when it's next performed.
And I don't know which part of it was a true story and which is the nonfiction. Saad was born in 1936, and she really went to Lady Cunningham house, and she found that little kid. That was all true story,
According to Hajj Saad
according to
Ahmed.
Hajj
Yeah,
Saad.
yeah, yeah. But I wanted to say also, I think the power of the play is that it kind of zooms in on of the history of Palestine becomes really zoomed in into her personal life. So the story of Hajj Saad is the story of Palestine. It's the story of every single Palestinian who's gone through so many decades of injustice. It's the story of my grandfather and the story of your grandfather and everybody's grandfather in a
Yes.
sense, and family, and all the injustice that we have gone through.
And with you telling her story, you also told the story of Palestine. You also described Gaza very well, and I could relate to the places that you mentioned: the houses, the streets. And I want to ask you, Ahmed, you wrote two other novels. I think one of them is Vanished. Many plays. I remember you told me 14 plays,
11 plays that
11
have
plays,
staged, yes.
and all of them are wonderful, wonderful, really good writing. But all of them were in English. You wrote only one
Mhm.
play in Arabic, but you did not repeat the experience again. So tell me why do you keep on writing in English, not in Arabic? Although Arabic is your mother tongue.
I studied English literature in Gaza. So my education was in English in Gaza. I started learning English in Gaza when I was like 9 or 10 years old. Anyway, my father really wanted me to learn English. I went to Al Azhar University. My education was in English. The English literature department in Al Azhar University was the biggest department with the highest number of students there, more than business and more than any other one,
Yes.
which is a testimony to how educated people are in Gaza to start with, but also how important people saw literature and books and writing and creative writing, etc. Um, so that's one part. The other part to it, in answer to your question, is that there is something really powerful about using my colonialist language and throwing it back at them and using it better than them in a sense. Not all of them, of course. I mean, I'm not claiming I'm Shakespeare or anything, but that ability to take my colonialist sort of like my colonizers' language and use it to explain my story and tell my story is actually an incredible medium where
Mhm.
people can understand. I don't want to say better, but I can understand things differently because it's phrases and metaphors and expressions that they understand really well, but put in a context that they've never experienced before, which I find really, really
Yeah.
powerful. There's, I think the best person to talk about this or describe this is Brian Friel, who's an
Mm,
Irish playwright,
mm,
and he was my inspiration. I did many research on him, a lot of research on him when I did my PhD on Irish and Palestinian literature, and a comparative study. And he wrote this play called Translations, which is incredible.
mm,
And he really discusses that sort of power of language as a medium in there. There's a particular scene in that play where two Irish salesmen are on a boat, on sailors, sorry, on a boat. And the English captain shouts at them
mhm,
and says, "Will you stop speaking Irish, please?" And they just look back at him and they say, "Well, actually, we're speaking Greek." And that idea that, if you don't speak English, you're not educated is
mm,
something that is kind of has been spread across the Middle East and other regions, etc. You find people in Gaza and Palestine speaking English with their friends because it's been seen as a sort of a language of education. I don't use it in that way. I
mhm.
use it to throw it back at them, as in like
Okay.
I am better in expressing myself in your own language, in a sense. It's a challenge. There's a third dimension to that, which is actually using a foreign language or a second language in this case. Makes me quite objective, to be honest with you. I have to find the right words. I have to evaluate the words. I have to look at the structure of the sentence and the expression and think, am I too attached, in a sense,
Mm,
to what is happening there? Does that word fit or not? So there's a bit of an academic exercise in a little bit, not too much, but just somehow in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, hmm, is this the right word? How would I say it in Arabic? And I would say it in Arabic, and then kind of look at the translation. Does that fit? Or look for something else. And I think that's a really good exercise in the process of editing in general.
interesting. And Ahmed, I've noticed recently that there is an overflow of English literature that is coming out of Gaza
Mhm.
right now, more than ever before. Even my book is in English, and I never wrote anything in Arabic.
Mm.
Is there something else on why Palestinians are now writing in English and speaking English? I mean, for me, when I started writing in English, I did not have this idea of throwing their colonial language back to
Mm.
them.
Mm.
I was thinking more about more exposure to my cause.
Mm.
I wanted to educate the world about what's happening in Palestine. I wanted to talk more about Palestine in a language that the world understands.
Mhm.
But how does that affect our literature and culture after all? I mean, if we keep on writing English, what will happen to Arabic?
I mean, I think there are a lot of people who write in Arabic. Everyone, Arabic is such a beautiful language. I mean, the reason I don't write in Arabic is because I feel I won't be able to honor it in the way it
Mm,
deserves, in a sense. You see people on social media, Facebook and others, my siblings, even if they're going to the toilet, they would
mm,
write a poem about ويسعدني هذا المساء أني ذهبت إلى الحمام. That, you know what I mean? It's like it's a very flowery language. It's really beautiful, and I love it so much. I love to read in Arabic a lot, actually, because it's beautiful, and the images and the metaphors and expressions are incredible. There are people who do it, and they do it really, really, really well. I think, yes, you're right. Some people are writing because they want their voice and their cause heard. But I don't think this is the only reason, personally, because now with technology being sort of like advanced,
mm.
Google Translate and actually automatic translations now. Now, if you post something online, the translation will
Yeah.
come automatically. So I don't think this is a barrier anymore that
Mm,
people can't read or understand what you're saying. And it's become so advanced with AI now that it's very simple, like on social media, or if you post something on Substack or any kind of website, that actually the translation will be perfect, almost close to. I don't want to undermine the job of translators here, but you know what I mean. It's good enough. I think it is a conscious decision that writers in Gaza, they're using it like social media as a medium
mm,
to explain and to talk about their dilemma and the issues that they're going through within this genocide. And they're choosing English because actually English is not just the language that for Britain, for example, or the US. It's an international language. We all own it in a
mm,
sense. And I'm using something that I own as the same way that we own social media now, not just Mark Zuckerberg or the others, but we actually own it, we the people. I think that is what people are trying to do in Gaza, and they're
yeah.
writing so much and producing so much. And I'm really, really impressed by their ability to just do that and produce. It's incredible.
And your PhD was on Palestine and Irish literature.
Yes.
Tell me about the Palestinian literature in the 20s and 30s and 40s. That was before AI, before social media, before we could write or speak in English. How was it? I remember you said that Gaza, especially Gaza of all Palestine, was the center of culture
Hmm.
in the region, the center of literary work in the region.
Hmm.
Tell me more about it.
I think it's a very big subject, this one, but very sort of easy to explain very quickly. In the sense, the 20th century was key within not
Mm,
just the development of Palestinian literature, but the entire Arabic literature in general. One thing to remember there in this context is that we've just come out of the Ottoman Empire, which was quite oppressive to a lot of our educated people. There was a very, very difficult period in the late 19th century with poverty spreading across the Arab world in general. Then within Palestine in this context, but also across the Arab world, then we went into European colonialism with the Sykes-Picot Agreement and being divided into various colonies, French or British colonies in the region. Syria was with France, Lebanon with France, Iraq with the UK, and Palestine, and so on and so forth. You could look that up, or people can if they want to. And again, those colonizers or occupiers worked hard on not educating the people and the kind of the general public in general. So they didn't build any schools. The literacy rate was incredibly low
mm,
amongst children, etc. Yet within that, in the 20th century, you've had people in Palestine who've led the literary movement so massively that became the icons. You've got people like Khalil al-Sakakini, Abdurrahim Mahmoud, sorry, and others who've really led
mm,
the literary movement within Palestine in general. Fast forward a little bit to 1936, and that is a really, really key era in there, where we had the Palestinian revolt against the British mandate slash occupation. Now, a lot of people say that the 1936 revolt delayed the Nakba of 1948 by 10 years, right? So the Nakba should have happened 10 years earlier, but
mm,
the revolt delayed it. In my opinion, I think the 1936 actually fast forwarded the Nakba a bit, because what the British did at that time, they've arrested all of the educated people in Palestine, all of the cultural icons, either imprisoned them or deported them. So when the Nakba happened, that sort of educated section, the intelligentsia of the Palestinian society, was either removed from Palestine or in prison.
mm,
So they weren't able to lead the Palestinian population into later on what happened in 1948 and have a proper revolution in there and gain independence, etc., etc. So literature was affected by that, in fact. But what helped around that time between 1936 and 1948 was actually poetry. Poetry was our Instagram these days. Poets like Mahmoud Darwish and the others were really key in sort of sending messages, and people used to know about what is happening through poetry, through oral poetry, and also through verses and songs, etc. So we went down a little bit during that period because only poetry, spoken word was the medium of literature and culture in a sense. Then, as we started to rebuild our Palestinian society and community following the Nakba, then you've got novelists who've come up and became part of the, for example, the PLO or PFLP with Ghassan Kanafani and the others, and a more national literary movement sort of was built up until we fast forward again to the 70s and 80s and 90s, where we have a bit of a more established Palestinian literature. But throughout the 20th century, a lot of people agree that the Palestinian literature and Gaza specifically, with Ma'in Bsaiso and others, were the leaders in something called Al
Mm,
Hadatha in literature, which is the kind of postmodern literary movement. So we're going through Nakba, colonization, and everything, yet you have people from Gaza and others who are leading the literary movement in the region, not just in Palestine. We had people in Iraq, for example, like Nazak al Malaika.
mm,
They were actually also involved in Al Hadatha movement, but they wrote in such way where European modernism was rejected. Was like
mm.
we can't actually write like them. This is doesn't work in here. We need something different, and a new literary movement was born in there.
And Ahmed, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, and I'm not a big consumer of Arabic literature, but most of the literature, most of the Palestinian or Gazan literature, is different from any other literature I've read. It's all political. And that's why we Palestinians say that art is resistance and literature is resistance. But most of the Palestinian work, most of the art that is in Palestine, most of the literature, the novels, the stories, the books are very political and are about the resistance or considered as a form of resistance. Is that very specific to the Palestinian people?
Very much so. Much to our dislike, to be honest with you, as writers, because we cannot disengage from this question at all. Even Mahmoud Darwish often said that people ask me if I'm a writer or a freedom fighter, and the truth is that I'm neither.
Mm.
Right? So even he was just like,
Or both, maybe.
I'm not even a writer, like I just kind of, I'm a poet. I just, say things in there. I think the expectation of writers from people to say that you are like a resistance writer, or a freedom fighter, or you're part of a cause, etc. I think that's the expectation from the readers and the audience. I think for us as writers, I think we write like everybody else, right? Like we write like anyone who just writes about the surrounding environment, etc. It happens that this surrounding environment is really shaped by struggle for justice and peace and freedom. It happens that there's a very aggressive colonizer state that is bombing us all the time. I don't think consciously, I wake up and I want to write a poem about the genocide.
Yeah.
Um, I identify myself as a Palestinian writer from Gaza. I say this to people, I don't have a problem with it. Some writers have a problem with being pigeonholed. I'm not. I don't have a problem with that because I love Gaza. I love my city. I have a lot to say about it. I've written 2 novels. I'm in the process of writing the third. I've written short stories, plays, and you know what? Like if I have the ability and the time and the money, I would write hundreds of books about Gaza because in every single corner of that city there is something. There is a story to tell,
Yeah.
and that's all what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, in every single corner, there is a martyr and there's a bomb and there is a history. And that's because we've had over 100 years of colonizer after colonizer coming to bomb us and take away our freedom.
And you recently become a poet.
Yes.
How did you become a poet? And I'm sorry in advance for asking this question.
Thank you. No, it's a good question, and I've become a poet because the first poem I wrote was in January 2024 when my brother was killed, and I couldn't find the words or anything to write about him apart from just writing this poem, and it was called To Khalid. And I wanted to just honor him through a poem, not through an article or even a novel or anything. I just wanted a couple of images of him, of what he was, for people to read. And It's been a painful process, to be honest with you, and I just left it. I wrote that poem and I left it. But then suddenly, like, there was some urge inside me that wanted me to write and more and express more. But I couldn't write drama or plays or prose or sit in a dark corner writing a novel with my thoughts and memories and all of these things. I thought poetry was a great medium of expression because it doesn't have a structure in a sense. I don't need to write with a plot and a beginning and a middle and an end. There is no bloody end to what's happening right now. It's ongoing. So poetry has been good. It's been good expression for that. After my brother was killed, which was very tragic because he was shot by a drone, lost his leg, and he was bleeding for 3 days on the street. And he was found alive, but as in the process of moving him on a donkey cart, he lost his life, or he was killed when he was on a donkey cart in there. And then just thinking about that, how could I write this in any sort of format other than poetry and other than expressions? And I don't write about the way he was killed. I write about the way he lived and how happy he was. And I ask for him to wait for me in that place where he's still happy, he's still young, he still has his leg, and he's not in pain at all. Then the next poem came, which was actually because I was thinking about, again, going back to how much I loved Gaza. I felt really upset because I was not just, I didn't just lose my brother, but I'm losing my city, the streets that I grew up in, the places that I know so well. And it's almost like his death. It's the death of the city. This ancient, beautiful, beautiful city is disappearing. So I wrote another poem called "To Gaza with Hope," and in that I talk about Gaza and its streets, etc. So yeah, it's I would say the genocide has made me a poet, and funnily enough, since the announcement of the ceasefire, I haven't written a single poem, and I don't know why. I don't know why I can't, you know, just bring myself to write a poem at the moment. I'm thinking about closure as a concept. How do I get to closure? And then how do we get to closure? Because closure, as you know,
Mm,
you've lost a lot of family yourself. I think closure somehow is a luxury as well. And I feel people here who have that luxury of closure is
I
is
know.
incredible.
I know. Ahmed, what sometimes gives me relief is that my family were all killed at once. They did not suffer.
Mm,
They were sleeping when they were killed. But I can't imagine how it feels for you to lose your brother and knowing that he was bleeding for 3 days and he was left
mm,
for 3 days to bleed.
mm.
It's unimaginable pain. And my condolences to you. I know no words can really convey how we feel
Thank you.
about our loved ones.
Thank you.
But I would like to hear more about your brother, and I would like if you can read the poem to us when you can. Doesn't have
Mm.
to be right now.
Yeah, I can read that now. So this is a poem I wrote for my brother. He was killed in January 2024 by an Israeli drone strike. It's called To Khalid. To Khalid, eternal is your name in Arabic, so stay immortal. Beyond the borderlines of this world, beyond the pain, beyond what you've seen in Gaza, beyond your child's screams of hunger and fear, you will be in a smokeless, bombless place. So wait for me, brother. Be patient and don't leave. You're only allowed to leave once. When I get there, I don't want to see you sad or old, angry or tired, scared of bombs or big tanks, frustrated or worried. Just stay as you are, as you were. Two excited lads wanting to play the oud and cycle to the beach. I will practice playing new songs and I will show off. In the meantime, while you wait, you can find someone to teach them how to sand wood, to make beautiful furniture, or teach the kids how to play marbles brilliantly. You can keep your big smile as you busy yourself doing things for others like you always have. Whatever you do, just stay there. I'm coming. I won't be long.
That was very powerful.
Thank you.
My other question, you mentioned a lot in your writing, and especially in this novel, Vanished. You were describing the details of Gaza,
Hmm.
the streets, the houses, the villages, the cities. in a very elaborate way, in a very true way. When you read, when I was reading this one, I felt like this is the Gaza I know.
Mm.
And you lived in Gaza most of your life before you came to the UK, and you ever since you have been visiting Gaza over and over and over. And you saw Gaza throughout the years, how it was and how it became and how it was progressing and how it's evolving with the people, with its and then you studied the history of Gaza
Mhm.
and the literature of Gaza. So I don't know. This is just another Ahmad from Gaza reminiscing the
Mhm.
days in Gaza. How was it for you? How difficult or easy was it for you to watch your beloved Gaza destroy
Mm.
every day for 2 years? The Gaza that you love, the Gaza that you grew up, the Gaza that you studied in, and suddenly everything you know, everything you love, everyone you know, they're either killed or they're still suffering in Gaza. How was it for you as a writer to witness all of that?
It's a very good question, and I'm really keen to hear your answer on this one because I think we've all been suffering individually inside us, and I don't think as Gazans and as Palestinians from Gaza, I don't think we have been talking enough about this. To be honest with you,
I think we avoid talking about it. I
because
avoid
mm,
thinking about Gaza. I avoid thinking about my family.
mm,
Every time uh, a thought comes to my mind, I try to shut it immediately. I don't want to think about my family,
mm,
especially my father. I don't want to think about him.
mm,
I refuse to believe that they're all gone.
mm,
I refuse to believe that Gaza that I know is gone.
mm,
I refuse to know how the people in Gaza have been destroyed in a way or another. Because we all know that the people in Gaza have been, everyone has been destroyed.
mm,
They haven't been killed entirely, but they changed.
mm,
Something in them has changed. And I refuse to know that my school is bombed, my university is bombed, that my neighborhood is bombed, that my home
mm,
is gone. And I avoid talking about it.
mm,
But when you are a writer, when you're an artist, it means differently to you.
mm,
And Gaza is not just Gaza that we know right now. Gaza is a very historical place. I remember in Barcelona, you were talking about Napoleon
mm,
when he passed by Gaza and destroyed it and all of that. So it's a very historical place. It's you talked also about El Pasha Palace,
mm,
about the history. It's
mm,
it's not a city that was built 20 years ago and it's gone. No, it's a
mm,
very historical place. The people in Gaza are very historic. They're very defiant. They're very resilient. They're wonderful people. And suddenly a genocidal army just decides to destroy Gaza, and they do it while the world's watching, and it just happened.
mm,
And we in the outside were watching.
mm. Yes, it's painful. It's really, really painful. And like I said, I swear to me, I swear on my heart, like I think the pain equals the pain of losing a family member. And it's hard to describe that. It's hard to describe that. It's like the thing about death is that when you lose somebody, the thing that hurts most is that you're never going to see them again, right?
Mm,
You're never going to have that opportunity of saying that thing that you wanted to say to them. You're never going to hug them again.
mm,
That's what happened to Gaza City, right? That's what's happened. Like you're never gonna see it again in the same way that it was. You're never gonna see that street that was before, that corner, that shop, that cafe, that restaurant, that mosque, that church that was bombed several times, that Omari mosque that is a sixth century mosque. You're never gonna see, that's it. It's done. And I feel sorry. I feel in such pain that I didn't spend enough time there. It's survivor's guilt mixed with yeah, pain like death. Like they're gone. I'm never gonna see it again. So that's really painful to be honest with you. But I hold myself and I hold this thought in my head that Gaza has been destroyed 6 times in history. So this is the seventh time in total, 6 times. We know that Gaza, the official symbol of Gaza, is the phoenix, right? تتذكر الساحة دوار الساحة
yeah.
the statue the main statue in the do you remember what it was the actual.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah,
the
of course.
jaw of the phoenix. That's
Yeah.
our
Oh,
statue.
wow.
That's what it is. And if you go and read the little placard in there, it says this is the statue is the lower jaw of the phoenix, because in the myth that's the first thing that comes out. It's not what you see in movies, a little bird that comes out with faces and stuff. It's actually the lower jaw, and then it grows a little bit bigger. So it was destroyed a few times, and that the fact that we have the phoenix as a symbol, it's for reasons. People have gone through this before. We talked about, it wasn't Napoleon, it was Alexander the Great who destroyed Gaza, because
Exactly. Yes, yes.
Alexander the Great, he besieged Gaza for many, 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 many months, and then eventually he went in victorious. But in the end, some Palestinian freedom fighter at the time, many centuries ago, took an arrow and shot Alexander the Great and basically scratched his face a little bit.
Mm,
And the guy had a massive ego. So he got very angry, very, very angry indeed. And he destroyed the entire city. So he ordered the destroying of the entire city, destruction of it, killed all the men, most of the men, raped the women, etc. And then he just left. He couldn't stay. And he walked and walked and walked, went through Rafah and then over towards the Mediterranean, Al Arish, and then kept walking and walking, keeping the sea to his right. And then he stopped and he was very upset. He missed that city because he really liked it
mm.
while he was there and while he besieged it and what he saw of it and what he knew about it, because it is an ancient city. So he stopped and he ordered the rebuild of another city. And that city is now called
Alexandria.
Alexandria. Yeah. So if you want to know what Gaza looked like, just go to Alexandria.
And it actually looks like Gaza.
It does.
It looks like Gaza when I was there last time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed it very much. I loved it very much because it reminded me of Gaza.
Yeah, beautiful alleys, long stretched alleys in there. The streets, the three main streets that we have in Gaza, Shara al Wahda, Shara
Mm,
Amr al Mukhtar, Shara al Talatin. This is what Gaza City is built around, right?
yeah.
It's the same thing in Alexandria. There's three main streets. I can't remember the names of them, but that's the same way. And then in between, you have those alleys that go from here to there and connect. I mean, it is a Mediterranean town. It's a beautiful, beautiful Mediterranean town, and it's quite ancient. Was a port town, and as you know, port towns are important and very, very multinational, multicultural, and international, because you have all the sailors coming from around the world to them. Gaza ports was active until 1958, I think, when the Israelis stopped. 58 or 56, I can't remember. So it's been a long time. But in terms of history, it has been active for a very long time. So many people have come to Gaza and many people have been going out of Gaza. This is why food is different, for example. Like, I often wonder, why do we have spicy food in there? And I think it has to do with this. It's kind of that spice trade that no other Palestinian city has it for some reason.
Mm.
But also that Gaza has produced so many amazing things, like the material gauze, which is used in hospitals for bandages,
And that's
even
what Gaza comes from,
and
the
that
origin of the word.
and that's what the word is. Yes. So yeah, it's an incredible cultural hub that people just now reduce to rubble and conflict and genocide and all of these things. Going back to the city that was destroyed, I think it will be rebuilt at some point, and it will be beautiful again. But it's not going to be the same, and it's not. We've lost that, and I keep asking myself, what do I miss most about Gaza? I don't know. What do you miss most about Gaza? What is it? Is it like, if I now take you back a few years, what would that be?
I would go to the seaport, Elmina,
Yeah.
and I would just sit on the rocks and talk to myself for hours. I
Yeah.
would ju- I just want to breathe the air of Gaza,
Mm.
smell the air of Gaza. I want to eat the shawarma of Gaza. I want to eat the nabulsiya of Gaza. I
Yeah.
just want to walk and wander the streets.
Yeah.
Um, I will not go to my home now.
Mm.
I don't think, when I was in Barcelona, I was asked by one of the moderators if I want to ever go back to Gaza.
Mm.
And it's my biggest dream to go back to
Mm.
Gaza.
Mm.
But at the same time, I don't want to go back to Gaza. I
Mm.
can't go back to Gaza
Mm.
right now. Even if they pay me all the money in the world, even if the war is over, even if Gaza is liberated, I don't want to go to Gaza
Mm.
right now because I will not tolerate going back to Gaza and seeing none of my family,
Mm,
no parents, no brothers or
mm,
sisters. I still have two sisters, but
mm,
three sisters I lost, three brothers, my
mm,
parents, my home, the streets. I always avoid thinking about it in my
mm,
mind, even when I'm alone. I avoid thinking about it because it's not gonna be easy. And I think what has done to Gaza is a criminal in a sense. Not that they only destroyed the buildings, the houses, the people, killed the people. What I mean,
mm,
you know, these sites that are in Gaza, they're UNESCO
mm,
recognized sites, very historic sites. And when you talk about Al Amari Mosque, over 1,000 years old mosque.
mm,
Talk about the church in Gaza, third oldest church in Gaza,
mm,
El Pasha Palace, the gold market, for example,
mm.
if you remember it
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sahara.
Beautiful.
The
Temples.
houses, the Hashmi Mosque, all
Mm,
very, very historic places.
mm,
They belong not only to Gaza, they belong to history, to the world, to humanity.
mm,
And it's
mm,
very criminal to destroy them.
mm,
And people, when they think about destroying a city, Gaza is not just a city, it's
mm,
an old city.
mm,
These old cities should be preserved,
mm,
they should not be just destroyed.
mm,
And there's nothing that you can do
mm,
to rebuild Gaza as it was before. Gaza, the Gaza that we know, is lost, it is destroyed.
mm,
And I know maybe we can rebuild the buildings,
mhm,
but the spirit, the atmosphere, the vibes that were in Gaza,
mhm,
even with its destroyed
mhm.
um, streets or very crowded areas, it was a special.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a special. And I don't think if we rebuild it, will be the same.
I don't think it will be the same. No, for sure. I think it will be different. It will be completely different. And I think it's going to be it will continue to be beautiful and it will continue to have all elements of what you've mentioned.
Mm,
But is it going to be our city? My and your city, you know, listen, I'm not talking about Palestinians and stuff. Like, I'm not talking about Trump's plan Riviera. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, is it going to be your city or my city, the city that we know? It's never going to be the same. No, but it will be equally beautiful and it will be different because we have the ability to do that and we have the ability to rebuild. We have the ability to make it beautiful. Already people are trying their best to kind of do that with very, very little means. And I suppose it's the same as, you know, the kind of the metaphor if a tree is completely, you know, broken, but you've got that one green branch, you could still take that
mm,
offshoot and plant it again next to the same tree, and it will grow and it will become a nice, beautiful tree, perhaps even stronger and better. Cheesy metaphor, I know, but I believe in this, like, because I think the worst thing that we could do as Palestinians and the worst thing as Palestinian writers that we could do right now is to succumb to this position of what they are actually trying to say to us. Oh, Gaza's going to need 300 years to be rebuilt. No, thank you. We know how to rebuild it actually a lot quicker than that. You know, you just need to open the borders. You just need to
yes.
allow the aids in. You just need us to. We want you to let us live, and we within 6 years we will actually rebuild it as it was, and maybe better, and maybe more planning it a lot better. Because let's face it, also the other thing we've just reminisced about Gaza and what it was, and I do, and I mourn it deeply. But life was also tough in Gaza. It
Yeah.
was very, very tough, you know, with lots of refugees camps that had very little infrastructure across the strip, right? Roads got a little better in the last 5 years or so, or 10 years maybe, thanks to a lot of Qatari money that came in as a sort of reconstruction work in Gaza. But for the majority of it was quite bad. Like the two main streets, kind of Salah ad-Din Street,
Yeah.
Shara Salah ad-Din was really well built, and then Rashid Street on the beach was very well built. But apart from that, wasn't really much. It was under siege. Let's not forget that. With Israel controlling everything, borders, the food that comes in. One of the things that I got to learn recently is that actually Israel used to ban a lot of things coming into Gaza pre October the 7th
Mm,
and all of these things, just to control the population and diet. I mean, they boasted about that before, but apparently, like looking the research into it, there's actually been a devised plan in terms of how the food and the supplies has been controlled within Gaza. And the major element for that and reason for that is to control the population. We
Yeah.
talked about sugar, I think, and
Yeah.
some like how they controlled sugar and the availability of sugar in Gaza. So it was quite oppressive. So I'm hoping that at some point when we get to rebuild it, it will be different circumstances, and we're not going to have those restrictions. And that's why, for me now, I feel like as a writer, I try to imagine that future a little bit more. I got more into about writing the future for some reason.
You wrote a play about Gaza hosting the Olympics.
Yes, that was a little bit prophetically scary in a sense.
Mm.
Like it was quite prophetic, and it was very strange. So I wrote this as a short story before in 2018, published in Comma Press,
Mm.
Palestine Plus 100. So Comma Press commissioned me to write this short story, 2018, and I wrote the story called Application 39, and in it I imagined Gaza in 2048 winning the rights to host the Olympics, right?
2048.
2048,
So
yes. And it's
very specific.
well, exactly, exactly. That hopefully at that point we would host the Olympics. And the whole premise is that two IT guys who work for the Gaza municipality building, just as a joke, they put an application for the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and they essentially somehow copy the French application,
Mm.
and they put it as a joke, but then they are successful. The IOC decides, well, actually, it's a good opportunity for peace. So they award Gaza the right to host the Olympics. And then it's like, shit, how do we actually do Olympics? Like, okay, more tunnels or whatever. But in it, in that short story, and it's only when I adapted it for stage earlier this year in one of the most difficult times for me back in May, because as I was adapting it, my sister-in-law was killed, who's the wife of my brother who was killed before, and his son. So it was an incredibly difficult time. But surprisingly, when I was rereading the short story, I completely forgot that in the original short story I wrote in 2018, I say that there would be a genocide, an Israeli genocide in 2025, right? Which was like, for me, was mind blowing.
Mm.
Like in 2018, I mentioned in 2025 there will be an Israeli genocide in Gaza, and Oslo will collapse, and Israel will invade, and we'll have a genocide. So that's the starting premise of it. So the two guys who submitted the application, they were running a lot, escaping for their lives in 2015. Fast forward to 2048, they decide, oh, we can be long distance Olympic
Wow.
runners or whatever. I also mentioned in that short story that Gaza is divided into various, like, north, middle, and south, which is what's happening now. I ended differently with a hopeful message, which I hope will happen at some point, but I'm not going to say what the end is because it's coming back to London next year, so you have to go and watch it.
Mm.
It's going to be on tour as well, so you have to go and see it. But I also wrote another short story more recently, and that was quite painful, to be honest with you. It's hopefully going to be published by the Palestine the Center for Palestine Studies in Colombia.
Mm.
And I was asked to write a story about Palestine post liberation. What does it look like? Right? So you were in a portal. I got this incredible email from somebody I respect so much, but I didn't know it was from him. And it was like, there is a knock on your door, and you're going to travel into the future in a portal.
Mm.
And I would like you to write a story about what you've seen and come back in the portal and write what you've seen. And it's interesting, like I sat down and the first thing that I was thinking about Gaza, what is Gaza going to look like in about 20 years, 30 years, 40 years from now? What's going to happen to the rubble? Right? And somehow I couldn't detach myself from the rubble. And in my head, that in the future, the whole rubble is collected in some massive square in the middle of Gaza City, and it becomes a memorial almost, but also a place for forgetfulness somehow. Because I can't remember who said, if you want to remember something, if you want to forget something, commemorate it. Because by commemorating something, we just forget about it. It becomes a symbol. Like we now mark the Nakba Day. Like
Yeah.
it's a day, apparently, 15th of May. It's not a day. It's our life right now, right?
Right.
And when the moment we mark it, we forget what pain we are going through. So I imagine that. I also imagine that it's as you go into the square and the rubble and all of these things, you're given you're given a pill and you have to swallow it and you forget everything and you come out. So Gaza becomes a touristy destination. All the tourists who have their own personal trauma, they come so they can take that pill, and then they take it and they go around in a sort of pilgrimage thing, and then they take it. And then outside is very advanced. It's very beautiful, modern buildings, metro, and all of these things. And there. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to think of Gaza is going to be. I don't think we'll ever forget the genocide, ever. Like for centuries to come, for centuries. I think we will commemorate it. We will. It has changed all of us, not just people in Gaza, but I think around the world. And I think it would be very, very difficult to change it, to be honest, or forget about it.
If there is one thing that you want your audience to know or understand about Gaza from your books, what would it be?
That we laugh a lot. We have a very good sense of humor.
We do.
Yes, exactly. We are. We're really funny. We just
I
we
was amazed with your sense of humor, by the way, when you
really
read Shroud Maker,
really
because you like writing comedy is not easy.
no no, but also important in times,
It is
difficult
important,
times and conflicts, right? Um, I think yeah. That, as I mentioned, I think the Irish say that whenever life is hard, comedy does very well.
right?
It's a way of coping and mechanism, you know. My niece has just arrived from Gaza and she's been going through some awful time at the moment. She's got a scholarship to study in the UK. She was one of those students who were evacuated by the UK government. So she was one of the lucky ones. There's been about 23 students who've arrived recently. Like, honestly, she's been gone through a journey of from hell just traveling. And if you meet her right now, she's just always laughing. She's always laughing, making a joke about everything. We're always like, we've got a really good sense of irony, and we're very cynical about everything in Gaza. So I think when you go to Gaza, you'll hear a lot of jokes, a lot of proverbs and sayings. We have a dictionary of
I
them.
know.
You know, a lot of them are rude, by the way. um,
But
uh,
we understand it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know how I don't know how I want to. I don't know how explicit I should be here in front of the audience,
Well, it
but
depends. We can do editing.
but like you know, the word "please" ours is mentioned in our language a lot, right? In a very very funny way. It's like "Hell please" is like "leave me alone," and it's like
Yeah.
"Inam
Can I tell you a
please," like
secret?
it's like it's an endearing way of doing it.
Can I tell you a secret
Yeah,
in front of the camera?
yeah.
That word, I never said it in my life, not even once.
What?
Wallahi.
No.
Wallahi, not even once.
That's brilliant.
I came from a very polite family. No, just to be honest, I said it only once when I was 4 years old,
Yeah, what
and I
happened?
remember it. And I was scolded. I was told off very, very badly, and I
What?
said like, I'm never gonna say it again.
Okay,
When
can
I
you
was
say it
four
now?
years old, I
Can you say it now?
no.
It's
Yeah,
brilliant. I remember because we when we used to say it, it's like swearing, right?
yeah.
I don't know if I said it in English. Please means arse. So it's not, it's not that bad, but my mom used to put chili in our mouth every
Yeah,
time we swore,
yeah.
right? Yeah, and then we got addicted to chili, so we swore more.
Maybe that's why we love chili.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I used to love chili, like just like but of course it was a little bag in the fridge and you couldn't find it as a child, so you just need to swear and your mom just gets the chili. It's like,
Yeah, it
don't
happened to me
swear
many
again. It's like,
times,
I won't
Ahmed.
do it again.
Many times. It happened to me. When I said another word, the kha word,
The what word?
the kha.
The kha word.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna say it. We're a very polite podcast. So yeah, Ahmed, thank you for adding this sense of humor. Um, Finally, this is a question that I am often asked in different formats, and that it is I'm often asked what is the role of artists and writers. What is their role after this genocide? What should they do? Do they have any responsibility, any duty? Should they just be afraid and stay silent and stay at their home, or they should do something about the genocide?
I think they should continue to talk about it. I think they should continue to engage. They should use their platforms, their art platforms, which is very, very powerful, especially in the UK and in the West in general, to continue to talk about it and see how they can help people. It hasn't ended; it's still ongoing. So, and it will continue for a long time. The effect of this genocide is going to, as we've just been saying, it's going to go on for quite a long time. They need to use their platforms. They need to not be afraid to use that platform, but also to be brave in a sense, because as much as we as Palestinian writers, we're talking about our experience. You, as a human, as an artist, you also have an experience with this. You're also witnessing genocide, the only televised genocide that we've known in history, right? Do you talk about that as well? Because that is an important subject that nobody talks about a lot. How is it affecting you as an artist and all of these things? You don't have to just write about somebody who's in Gaza. You can write about somebody who's in London, an artist who's seeing all these images and trying to process them and cope with them and go to their daily life, go to watch football, knowing all of these things are happening, somewhere else. And actually, guess what? Your government is very much involved in this. Create art towards that, because art makes a huge difference and reaches to a lot of people across the globe, not just in this country. And there are many, many amazing artists who are doing that, who are creating music, creating artistic stunts, like led by donkeys, for example, are amazing at doing that. Messages that cut through to the core of your humanity. In the end, we are humans, so we would like you to continue to show that humanity, and in a way that is not really sort of like caged
Mm.
and like afraid and what's the word, kind of pretentious, I suppose. Like, no, just be yourself. You're a human. You're affected by a genocide that's being televised. Tell us about it. How,
Yeah.
what does that mean? The other side is really support the amazing writers and artists in Gaza. There are so many of them, so many of them. And I think now it's an opportunity. I think every single Palestinian writer should have a platform. They should be either published, they should be sort of interviewed in places. They should collaborate with them. There's a power of collaboration between artists here and artists there, creating something completely new. Um, it's interesting just looking at some example recently where a Palestinian artist and others have collaborated. You've seen some, for example, some musicians in Gaza and Irish musicians collaborating. It's the most beautiful thing you can ever see. And artistically speaking, this is incredible. We should always be collaborators and in terms of work with our art and share as much as possible. But for this, it's a specific need for Palestinian artists to be supported and have their voices heard
Mm.
as much as possible. So I think artists and writers and everybody here should do two things. One is to continue to talk about it from their own experience, and then support the artists over there.
And can we finish by the other poem you wrote, To Gaza with Hope, please?
So yeah, I read this poem. It's for Gaza City, because I miss the city itself. And it's called To Gaza with Hope. I love you further. I love you more. Even with no buildings, even with no cafes. I love you further. I love you twice. Once for your pride and twice for your strength. Your Jabalia will be inside my heart. I will write it on every beach and on bus stops. I will call my children Rafah, Khan Yunis, Nusayrat, and Beit Hanun. I love you further, beyond what they say and their pain, away from their tanks and hate speeches. I will continue to eat chili like you taught me, tell jokes the way you showed me, love life the way you do, be brave and resist, keep hoping, keep dreaming. I only ask you one thing: stay there for everyone I love.
Ahmed Masoud, thank you very much for speaking to me today. And thank you for everything you do. Thank you
Habibi.
for writing Vanished and Call it what it may. What was the other?
Come what may.
Come what may.
Come what may.
Come what
Yes.
may.
Yeah. Which is going to change title, by the way, because it's being republished by John Murray, a big publisher here in the UK. And it's going to be called A Death in the Old City,
Okay.
because it's an Agatha Christie style murder story set in Gaza.
Okay. Thank you for writing The Shroud Maker, which is
Thank
my
you.
favorite. And hopefully we will speak again.
Habibi, thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Deep and powerful conversations about Zionism will never be discussed in the mainstream media. That's why it is imperative that we, the free people of the world, start and support new media outlets that go deep into these discussions that need to be heard and discussed. That's why I urge you to support Palestine Deep Dive with as little as £2 per month. Go to palestinedeepdive.com/support.